Before we jump into this episode, I want to remind you that while Caitlin and Sophia are dietitians, we're not your dietitians. This means the information shared in the Food Freedom Fertility podcast is intended to entertain, educate, and inform. It is not a substitute for medical care. This information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making any changes.
Welcome to another episode of Food, Freedom, and Fertility. And this is the episode you've been waiting for. If you have tea in your hand, we're about to spill it.
This is the hot goss episode.
If you've been wanting a reason to laugh or cringe in shame, Sophia and I are just about to lay it out there and make it real about the things that we're seeing in the internet, in our practices, and honestly, this episode should help you feel seen and heard. So, welcome to another episode of Food, Freedom, and Fertility. This is Sophia and Caitlin. You are best friends in your trying to conceive journey.
Well, in the spirit of spilling the tea, we have some news in our Food, Freedom, Fertility family here, but I know it's not the kind of news that you like to get. It's a big shift and change in Caitlin's life, and I just invite you, Caitlin, to share with our listeners a bit about what's going on in your house there.
Yeah, definitely a different type of tea. Oh boy. My parents have lived with us for most of my marriage. When we moved to Kansas, we bought a house that's a way more optimal setup for multi-generational living. And I have the best parents in the universe, in the world. They're just the best. They have their faults. They're human, but they're great.
I can attest to this. I really like them too.
I'm living out one of the reasons why we have made this living situation what it is. And we found out, just to cut to the chase, that my dad has cancer. So he was having trouble swallowing. Food wasn't getting all the way down his esophagus. He went and saw his primary care doctor, and they put him on an anti-inflammatory and antacids for a month. And we were like, WTF, this man smoked most of his life. Let's do real testing. Something else is going on. And my dad kind of put it off because he wanted to go visit my sister. And when we got back, he got in. They pretty quickly scheduled him an EGD. And what they were going to do was go down his esophagus and stretch out what they suspected were what are called esophageal strictures. Like a hardening and a calcification of the esophagus, which should otherwise be a fairly flexible tube. And instead of finding that and stretching it out with a little balloon, they found esophageal cancer. So we've been living, I guess it's going on 3 weeks now, maybe 2.5. It's felt kind of like a whirlwind. Going to doctor's appointments and things. And I have a very lovely mother, very capable in a lot of ways, but she's aging too. And this is a very emotional experience for us all. And so I've kind of taken over the going to appointments, being the historian, being an advocate. She comes along too a lot of times, but there's just a lot of details and a lot of navigating hard medical language. We were just at a surgeon oncologist yesterday, and they were using things like neoadjunctive and, just words my parents don't necessarily understand. And my dad asked a simple question, so the surgery that we're going to do at the end of the chemotherapy and radiation, we're basically what is that going to look like? And he's like, well, we're going to cut out the part of your esophagus that has cancer. We're going to leave big margins so that we make sure we get it all. And then we're going to take part of your stomach, and it's going to basically become the top of your stomach and the end of your esophagus. It's going to go up higher. And I was like, okay, so he's not going to have a sphincter anymore there. And he's like, yeah, there will be no sphincter. So it's
just an open hallway. Hey, Food Freedom and Fertility family, it's Sophia introducing Fertility Cloud. High treatment costs can be daunting, but here's some good news. 80% of Fertility Cloud patients have gotten pregnant for under $2,000 after just 5 months of treatment. Starting your family doesn't need to come with a huge price tag. Fertility Cloud virtual consultations mean you can talk to them from the comfort of your couch. They create personalized plans for men and women, whether it's ovarian stimulation with Clomid or Letrozole, Ovidrel trigger shots, guidance on male fertility, or even weight management support with medication. As a special for Food Freedom and Fertility listeners, get $50 off your initial medical doctor consultation. With meds delivered in just a day or two, unlimited support for your questions, and free follow ups when needed, they're here to make your path to parenthood smoother and more affordable. Ready to start? Visit myfertilitycloud.com and enter Food Freedom, one word, at checkout.
My dad, he's like, doesn't understand that. And I was like, okay, like, hold on, doc. And we drew a picture. I was like, this is what it looks like now. This is what it's going to look like after surgery. And just like hard, very sobering realities that are coming up. Yesterday, we found out he'll be on tube feeds for 4 to 6 weeks, conservatively. And that's if things go well and he doesn't lose a lot of weight during treatment. And he's already lost weight because not a lot of food's going down. So there's just like hard, if I'm just going to be frank in how I feel about it, there's hard shit flying at me every day right now.
Yeah, really hard.
Really hard. And boy, it's been this interesting dichotomy of like, I also have a dad that really believes in God and feels like his job on earth isn't done and he has more people to love and more people to tell about Jesus.
He
And
has such a ministry, and not like, putting on robes and standing in front of the congregation type ministry, which is a vital ministry. Please, I'm not putting that down. But he has such a pastoral ministry, like really having a guided hand and a loving light in so many people's Christian walk and so many people's lives. That's so your dad.
yeah. And his like retirement gig is hopping in an Uber every day as his like evangelist wagon. Like he like
Yeah.
lets people in and it's almost like he starts like a stopwatch, like, how long will it take me to get to Jesus? It's like, oh, he's just the best. And like that's also why he lives with us is this is the guy I want around my grandkids or his
Yeah,
grandkids, my
amen.
kids, like I want that to be poured into them. So he's the last living of 3 siblings. He was the middle and we don't know a lot of health history because both of his parents died fairly young. And my dad is the best, but he eats like a teenager and has smoked most of his life and hasn't been an avid exercise enthusiast and has been indulgent in different areas. And um, so, we're navigating some of these things with that type of a history and that type of a palette of interest in food. And it's just, it's a new road we're charting. And so like through it, I've got a lot coming at me just on a personal level. Like, how do you keep running your business? What are your children's needs going to be? Do you need childcare? I don't suspect that I'm going to be like the person driving him to and from chemo. My mom's completely capable of that. But, there's just like added burden and things going on in life. So
There's just so much. And yeah, my dad actually, get this, listener. So the past 6 months in my life, my dad actually had esophageal cancer as well. His was more the tongue and the throat. So like the upper part coming towards your mouth, whereas Caitlin's dad, it's down towards the stomach. But my dad got diagnosed with cancer as well and I was actually with Caitlin when he got diagnosed, which was crazy. We had planned a little family vacay together, and we happened to be somewhere that was a few hours from where my parents live. So my folks came to visit us there too, and we were all together when he got the diagnosis, which is such a
wild.
blessing, that
Yeah.
we were wild. And my dad has since gone through treatment and has come out on the other side completely cancer free and physically is doing wonderful. mentally, I don't know how good it was for him to be the center of attention of everyone's world for 6 months. I feel like he's a little bit of a diva now, but he was already a major diva, and now it's like
Oh man.
serious, like prima donna diva. And but it's just crazy that like my dad got his cancer free, like PET scan, everything, 3 months done with treatment, like clean bill of health, like a couple weeks ago, truly. And then that's right when Caitlin's now it's her turn.
One thought that I've had through this, and I've brought it up a few times, is like I was at ground zero with you in this and learned a lot about cancer, learned a lot about how it's treated, was with you praying, was with you crying, was with your parents the day after the diagnosis hit. And it actually, in a unique way, helped me be more capable in this season where now I'm having to be a lot more the advocate. And so that, not that it's like it's a good thing out of a really hard circumstance.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
haven't told my children yet, and we probably will not until like they place the port that they'll do chemotherapy, or there's something else that's just like
A glaring, "Hey, don't go jump on grandpa. He just had this thing done." Yeah.
my husband, his oldest sibling died of a different type of cancer, but incredibly young. And so like my children know this word very well, and they think that it equals death. And so it's going to be a scary thing that we're going to have to like kind of process and help them through.
Yeah.
And that's just a decision we've made, especially in light of like we're recording this 5 days before Christmas. It's just also an interesting season to hear these things and process these things. But there's a part of me that's looking forward to telling my children, because my middle child, Bonnie, God bless her, she looked at Sophia's dad, Bob, after really thoroughly enjoying him for a few days during this vacation, after he left and came back, and my kids had heard somehow, or we told them, I don't know, maybe heard us praying. And she looked at Sophie's dad and said, "Hey, Bob, I'm sorry you got cancer." This little, what was she
No,
at the time?
yeah.
4. It
Yeah.
just was so honest and so like, in a sense, it was also kind of the elephant in the room that we weren't necessarily talking and trying to still everybody enjoy themselves, and kind of a whirlwind reeling moment for Sophia and her family. And yet here's just like this little girl, like, sorry, dude, sorry you got cancer. And I'm kind of like, I'm also excited to tell my children, because I think that they'll bring a simplicity to prayer and trusting
Yeah,
God in
childlike
this.
faith.
Yeah, like my son, like he'll get like a little owie on his finger or something, and we'll pray, and he'll look at me and go, "God's going to heal me?" And he asks it like a question, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's happening. God's on it right now." And my mother-in-law had a pretty intense surgery a few weeks ago, and he's still praying for grandma's belly. And I just like,
Mm.
I'm kind of ready to tell them on that sense, because I can't wait for, I think, the encouragement and also maybe some comedy that may be mixed into a really stupid, hard situation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the update. We are looking for prayer and support in that way. And it's not a secret. And so if you're hanging out with me on Instagram, you'll probably see things about it. And, we may throughout the season here give you some updates, although we record things pretty far in advance, and so you may feel like you don't hear about this for a really long time, and that's probably going to be the case too. So but just know, if you are somebody who prays, we welcome that. My dad's name is Pat, and that's that T, whatever it is,
That's
it's
T.
spelled.
The C, the
Hmm.
big C, T.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right, well, let's hear from our sponsor, and then we can move on into more of the spilling the tea on what we've been seeing in the fertility world and online and things like that.
Hey, friends, we're taking a break from this episode so I can share with you a little more about one of our sponsors, Fullwell. Fullwell is a reproductive health company offering superior nutritional supplements that are made without compromise to support women and men throughout their reproductive journey. I have taken Fullwell's prenatals, their fish oil, and have literally tried every product they've released, and I stand behind this recommendation with my whole heart. One of my favorite things to recommend to clients is their fertility trio. This includes their egg and sperm quality supplement, their women's prenatal, and fish oil. This helps proactively support you getting ready to conceive. This trio includes things like CoQ10, ashwagandha, and NAC. It makes me think of a life vest. You don't want to go into pregnancy without these foundational supports. And if you've been struggling while trying to conceive, this is the time to upgrade your prenatal fertility game and check out Fullwell. Use code FFF20 today to get 20% off your first order. Okay, coming back because we love our sponsors, I do have to just give some special shout outs right now. I literally today that we're recording this posted on my Instagram that my dad has cancer. And one of the first messages I got from someone on my phone was from Ayla, the founder of Fullwell, who is the sponsor this season, who you guys know, I love and adore her and have a total crush on her professionally and love her products. And she was like, what can I do for you? I'm here for you. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. That's the kind of humans business that is making decisions about prenatals and things. And what was great was I replied back and was like, hey, your nausea gummies, can you send me some of those? That would be a really big help
Yeah.
because dad's about
Yeah.
to need some of that. So that was cool. The day after we got the diagnosis, my dad and I went to get him a CT scan. And that was sure a whirlwind of, and my dad had a couple other things that happened in that procedure that he was healing from. And so he's like high on Oxycontin. We're coming home from the CT scan. We're laughing, we're crying. And like I pull up to our driveway and we have 3 huge boxes from Fond, who is one of our other sponsors, of just like literally the highest quality bone broth you could purchase anywhere, ready for me. Because that weekend I prepped out all these soups because he's having difficulty swallowing. So that was amazing. And I'm going to shout out one other brand because it's really been a total blessing. And I know Sophia has received a gift from them recently too, which was before all of this happened. I saw Sophia open up a package from Super Cubes, and I was like, those are
Yes.
so cool. So I reached out
Mhm.
to the founder and was like, hey, I want to get some Super Cubes. These look amazing. And they're basically like silicone. Like you can buy things like this, but they're not as cool because I have silicone things that I used to make like baby food and freeze it, or ice cubes for cocktails and stuff. And they're not reinforced in any way. So you have to be like very careful with them as you're freezing them. These come with lids that fit them, and they're like reinforced around the edges.
Yeah, the whole thing isn't a floppy silicone. It's like the edges of it have like you can hold on to it and set it in your freezer without it like bowing and bending in on itself and like dumping out everywhere.
They're amazing. I have made like 10 different soups in the last 2 weeks that I have frozen individual portions of afterwards. And then I like shrink wrapped them. And I now have a freezer that's like pea soup, wonton soup, just like he can like literally just
Mhm.
go undo one. And like those are the benefits of getting esophageal cancer when you have a dietitian that you live with.
Yeah.
But Super Cubes, it's the kind of thing that I probably would have been like, do I really need that? But if you're somebody that's prepping out a bunch of food, whether it's soup or not, it was a gift sent to me. I'm not an affiliate or anything like that, but I've been really thankful for it. And my sister didn't know I had them. And she purchased some and sent them to me once he had this diagnosis because she's like, we got to make a bunch of soup, right? And so she had seen them and she sent them to me. So now I even have another color of them. Um, and so just some sponsor love and just some great resources. I want to give them a shout out because I'm thankful for who they are, and the products they're making have been helpful in this season.
Amen. Yeah. Thank you to our sponsors and thank you to Super Cubes. And do you know what? If you want to be a sponsor of future season Super Cube, hit us up. We are open to it. All right. So spilling the tea.
Yes.
More tea to spill. So today, followers, listeners, the Academy of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, that's what it's called. They have an Instagram, and they made a post today that was like, don't let your period interrupt your plans. There's no reason to have a period. You can just take birth control pills. This is a real post that this organization that's supposed to be of obstetrics and gynecology made. And I don't follow them on Instagram because why would I? They don't really post anything. Honestly, I've given them a look, and they don't post anything about obstetrics and gynecology. They're not like, "Hey, here's our advancements in treating cervical cancer." Like, this is, new ways that we're supporting moms. It's all about like, here's a disease that you could get a vaccine for. Here's another disease you could get a vaccine for. And here is a way that you should be more scared about your reproductive rights being taken away. You should be really scared. Hey, freak out, everybody. Get
Mhm.
scared. And I'm like, are you even going to talk about obstetrics and gynecology? Like, there's more to it than these two things. And they
Right.
don't post anything other than that. So I'm like, all right, well, I don't need to follow you. So get me out of here. But so this post they made today went immediately viral.
Of course.
And oh my gosh. And so many women like just went into the comments and were like, P.S. ovulation is not a disease. Like, you don't
You don't need to avoid it
what are
like the
you
plague.
what are you treating with these medications exactly? Like, this is not this is crazy that you're just painting with this broad brush, and you're not saying, hey, in certain circumstances you may be able to safely avoid menstruating for a short time. That can happen. It's an option, instead of
Mhm.
just like blankly being like, anyone can do this. As if it's amazing because, and obviously I'm sort of like reacting now saying this, but like, it's almost as though they believe ovulation is a disease. That
Yeah,
like
and
being
then
fertile, ovulating and
and
menstruating
menstruating,
is a
the bleed of
disease.
it too, right? Like,
Yeah, the menstruation is a disease, the ovulation is a disease. We need to stop the ovulation so that you don't menstruate. And then all of these things that make it like pregnancy is a disease. Look at all,
mhm.
you got to get like 4,500 shots. And here's all the reasons why you should be super freaked out if you get
Yeah,
pregnant this year.
get all this imaging done, do all the testing.
Yeah. And like, write your congressman because all of these, your rights are being stripped, and just freak you out when it's not even really the truth, and it's not even obstetrics or gynecology. Like, tell me about the advancements in postpartum hemorrhage management. Tell
Right.
me about what you're doing for moms and babies, not just alarming everyone about some diseases.
They should hire us to do their PR because we could do it way better.
Oh my God, they would hate
So
everything I
so
have
what
to say.
happened? What
Caitlin and I would
happens?
be like, pregnancy's not a disease. You're out of business. Everybody stay home.
What happened when everybody was like, "Cancel this because this is
Oh my god, they
wrong."
took it down. Like, this post is now no longer up. I saw like a couple different practitioners have it in their stories. The
And
story
now you
slides
can't
are
get to
now
it.
like, it says like links to nothing, or the story site itself has been taken away without their permission. And then some people just made actual like reaction reels and stuff to it.
Mhm.
And so those things you can still see what it said. But they deleted the actual post because
Wow.
everybody with a brain was like, I'm not a doctor, but I know that shit ain't right.
Right,
Like,
no kidding.
what are you telling people? That is crazy.
It's just appalling to me that, like, literally today, I logged into my Facebook group for my Find Fertility course, and somebody was like, "Yep, just got an unexplained infertility diagnosis. Want to know what my doctor wants to do for me? Two
Put you on
guesses,
birth
though.
control pills.
Yes." I was like, do
And
they
that's
not
going to help you get pregnant how? Like,
like turn off ovulation? Let's do a washout. Let's just I mean, I understand if there is a something you're revving up for and that's what you're choosing to do, and there needs to be a period of time that you need to be on something. I get when there's like
Yeah, like if you're going the IVF route and you're like, let's go freaking whole hog, give me 100 medicines, let's
Mhm,
do this thing and let's stop my own fertility and override it entirely with all these medicines,
exactly.
then fine. The birth control pills that they have you take are truly the least of your problems. They're like the least risky medication of all the onslaught of medications that you have to take before an egg retrieval or transfer. So that's really
But here, we don't know why you're not getting pregnant, so let's just give you a reason you're not getting pregnant. Let's put you on birth control. It was just like jaw drop because it is literally it in line with what ACOG just said and did. Basically, they're saying there's no reason to ovulate, there's no reason to menstruate, so let's just artificially turn that off because bleeding is an inconvenience. Or treating you and asking the right questions and getting to the bottom of what's actually going on and helping you address whatever underlying health condition is there is too hard for us. We actually don't know how to do that. And so, but what we do have is a pill to give you. I mean, okay, we're spilling the tea. Why would someone want to ovulate? Like what? Somebody's listening to this going like, "What? I was on birth control for a really long time and I'm so thankful for it."
And that is fine. There are reasons to be thankful for it. I was on it for a time too, and it was good for that time. But okay, why would you want to ovulate? That's a great question. First of all, if we're going to treat something, there needs to be a diagnosis beforehand. This is medicine 101. You have to have a diagnosis that you're treating. So, is ovulation a disease? If it is not, then what are we doing with this treatment? That's a fundamental question that your doctor and you have to decide together, or whoever's prescribing this to you. Secondly, ovulation is vital to the cyclical nature of your brain, your breasts, your ovaries, your uterus. In the
Your
way that these
bones.
medications function, yeah, your bones, the way these medications function is they override your natural fertility systems, putting artificial hormones in your bloodstream at such a level that your own ovaries, pituitary, uterus sort of shut down into more of a postmenopausal state
Sweet. Mhm.
and keep you from ovulating. This is what menopause is,
You
a
stop
cease to
ovulating.
ovulate.
Mhm.
That's what this is. And so, in doing so, we're also stopping you from having periods. And for women that have huge fibroids and they are flooding their bed with blood, they are anemic, they are having to have transfusions and things like that, this is a huge issue. For women with endometriosis, where they are having hellacious pain, when they are having to miss out on life because they
Mhm.
are doubled over, vomiting, having fevers, losing consciousness because of their period, this is a problem. If you have polycystic ovarian syndrome, where you aren't having a period because you aren't ovulating for months and your body's just building this uterine lining again and again and more and more and more, and you end up with something called endometrial hyperplasia, which can truly cause different kinds of uterine cancer, polyps, infections, other issues, then having this postmenopausal type hormone level where your body is not building a uterine lining and you're in fact having a shed when you go on your placebo pills for a week, this can be a treatment for these things. That is very real. Or if you are in a situation where you are having sex with people who are not trustworthy to raise a baby with, if you are in a situation where you are having sex with people who you don't want to have a baby with, if you're in a situation where you want to have sex, but having a baby is literally like 10 out of 10 cannot, will not, then this is an option for you. And some people, it's very true, some people have taken this medication and have not had issues. That has happened. But that's certainly not everyone. And that's
Mhm.
not the whole story because ovulation is not a disease. When
And
you
it's good for
ovulate, your
you.
body yeah, great.
Not only is
Good
it
for
not a
you.
disease, It's good for you. Ovulating is
It's good for you.
good for
It's
you.
vital. It is a vital part of being a living, breathing woman. And
Mhm.
shutting this down for no other reason than this is inconvenient and I don't really want to hear you bitch about it anymore. I'm going to give you this pill. So not only can I hump you freely without any problems, but I also don't have to miss out on any of your potential productivity because you're
Mhm.
not going to be laying around with a heating pad. You're going to be on your feet cranking out work. And I think that's really where a lot of this comes from is this is, and it's what's expected of women. You're expected to act like you don't have a period. You're expected
Mhm.
to shove a cotton wad up your hole and continue wearing the same things and doing all the same things. Like, do you remember those like Tampax commercials where it's like a cheerleader, like on top of the
Mhm.
pyramid and like doing
Mhm.
flips and stuff? And then
Mhm.
at the end, it's like Tampax was there. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? There's a reason why we bleed, and it's not like doing all these flips and shit when you're on your period. It's not good for you. But then, I get it by the same token. Like, she wants to be at the top of that pyramid. She's worked hard for this. She doesn't want her period to shut it down.
And, like, that's the culture you and I grew up in. Like, I am on
Yeah.
my period right now, which, by the way, this is funny. My mother-in-law, since we're spilling the tea, sorry, Colleen. My mother-in-law has, shingles. She
Oh, the
c
worst.
the worst. She calls me earlier this week like, "Hey, I have shingles." And I was like, "What?" I didn't hear her well. She's like, "I have shingles." I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "So, I'm not supposed to be around any children that aren't vaccinated, and I'm not supposed to be around any pregnant people." And then there was a very pregnant pause. And I was just letting it be there for a while just to fuck with her. And I was like, I was like, well,
Caitlin's like, it's been a stressful 3 weeks. I'm going to get my thrill.
truly. I mean, I was just like, oh, pregnant pause. And then I was like, well, this is a funny way to ask me if I'm pregnant, Colleen. You don't have to get shingles. You're welcome to ask me at any point in time if you think I'm pregnant, if I'm pregnant. And we both laughed. And I was like, sorry you have shingles. I'm on my period. So anyway, fast forward. Yesterday, I wore these like really lovely period panties to bed on my period. And yes, I know they're toxic. Yes, whatever. I really like them, and it's a risk I'm taking. Anyway, I usually wear my like period panties, boxer brief things that are for sleeping overnight. But I didn't. I was too tired and I didn't get up and change into those. And the next day I woke up and there was blood on my sheets. Not a lot, but there, which was a bummer because I just got these awesome sheets. Sophia, you know what I'm talking about. And I was
I
like,
do. Yeah. Caitlin and I got the same sheet set for Christmas. Her cousin
oh,
sent us sent it to
like
both of us. They're silk
they're a
and they're
million
so
dollars.
good.
They're so great.
They
Anyway,
are. They're the crazy. Yeah. We would never buy these for ourselves. Thank you. Another sponsor, Caitlin's cousin Star, sponsoring us our personal lives.
so I'm like, great, fuck my life, but also like, this is just life. And so I strip my bed and I run it under cold water. If you don't know, that's how you get blood out of things. And then you don't rub it. You just let the cold water run over it. I learned this from my midwives, but then you use hydrogen peroxide. You throw it in your thing. It's great. So I'm making my bed that night. And Fiona, my oldest, says to me, Mommy, why are you making your bed? And I was like, oh, Fiona, that's a great question. Remember how we talked about how mommies and adult women, every month their body gets ready to have a baby. And then if they don't get pregnant, every month they like make a new home for that baby inside of them. And in order to do that, they bleed a little bit out of their bottom. And when I say bottom, I mean like just their bottom region. She knows what hole it comes out of, not your butt. But that's what I said to her. And she's like, "So why are you changing your sheets?" I was like, "Oh, well, because I am it's that time. Mommy's not pregnant and my body's making a new home. This is an age appropriate way to discuss it with a 7-year-old. And I'm
Mhm.
bleeding. And like I wear special panties when I bleed and they just kind of leaked out." And so she goes, "So ew, that's like, it's almost like you peed blood into your bed." And I was like, "Yeah, that's almost exactly like what happened." but it's not gross, Fiona. This is so cool. Mommy's body every month gets ready for a new baby. And the blood that comes out of me is like a celebration that we get to start over. And I reflected after this conversation on like how different would my adolescence and my going into my teen years have been if I had had a mom that had been like, this isn't gross. How cool is this that my body does it? This isn't gross. It's a celebration. And I feel
Mhm.
like just even talking about this in the episode, like you don't have to have a period, take a pill. You don't have to ovulate. Just stay on birth control the rest of your reproductive years. She, as a 7-year-old, is being programmed to think my body is amazing and it's going to do this really cool thing someday. And that it's like a triumph. And I just have to
Mhm.
say, in the moment of like being like, fuck, I have to wash my sheets. I was like, I turned this into such a positive situation because I want her to like embrace it and be amazed at the miracle of reproduction and that her body gets to be
Amen.
like the primary source of that.
My daughters are so fascinated with me when I have my period. We call it a moon time. And my daughter is like, I have my moon time too, but my moon time is blue. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, mine's red. And she, what did she say to me one time? She's like, oh, mommy, you forgot your moon time diaper or something like that. She called it my moon time diaper because I had like a panty liner on, a pad, my moon time diaper. I don't remember what she said about it, but she did use the words moontime diaper and it was really funny.
That's
And yeah,
hilarious.
this is like such a different situation talking about how good this is and not how shameful it is and secret. Don't ever let anyone know. This is how I felt. Like you needed
Mhm.
to really hide this as best as possible. And you
Mhm.
needed like, if you were going to go to the bathroom in high school, you had to like you couldn't bring your purse because then they would know. You couldn't bring your backpack. So you
Yeah.
put it in your sleeve so
Uh-huh.
that no one would see your tampon or your pad. And that like it was this whole mental gymnastics game all the time of like how to make it to where nobody would ever know that I'm having my
Mhm.
period. It's exhausting. And I definitely don't want my kids to have that. And I remember, I don't want to like dump on my dad here, but I remember him reacting really negatively towards me when I had my first period and telling me to never talk about it. And I just remember feeling so much shame and feeling like he was just so disappointed in me. And, that's a really hard thing as a girl to be like, wow, like not only now am I like bleeding, but my dad's rejecting me because of this.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's his own issues with women and, things like that he has to deal with. And but that was a really negative experience for me, a really negative experience. And I remember my mom, they just handled it so poorly. And I hated it. It's bad. So I don't want that for my kids. And so I'm not going to
Well, and for
do
me,
that. I'm going to teach them a lot more.
truly, amen. And I'm proud of us both for being different. For me, having a period is a triumph. Like this girl
Right?
fought to have periods.
Yeah. To not go, oh, we're day 122, still no period. Yeah.
And if you're listening to this and
Oh,
you're like, man, that's me. I haven't had a period. I'm not ovulating. Girl, this this podcast is full of answers for you. Go listen to all the episodes. Zero in on the ones on hypothalamic amenorrhea or PCOS. Those are often the reasons why you might not be having ovulation or a period. But like I did, I used to go 75 days, 90 days without a period. And for me, they're coming like every 33, every 35, every 30 days this season of my life. And that's amazing for me. And we should celebrate it. I think it's amazing. And honestly, they're fairly symptom free at this point. Like my hormones are rocking and I'm so
I
thankful.
love it.
Yeah. Okay. Give me some tea on a reel you made the other day about the type of patient. Give us like a little rundown
Oh.
on Sophia and I don't often like play the
We don't go negative.
we don't go negative.
That's really it. You're not going to hear a episode of us complain. I guess we're on here just dumping on ACOG. Maybe that's not true. But like, you're not going to hear us like, that's not really a person. That's like an entity, you know?
Yeah.
But you're not going to see us like really try to assassinate the character of other practitioners that we don't agree with. You're
Mhm.
not going to see us like calling people to arms and being like, cancel so and so, cancel such and such, because they said something that we don't like or we don't agree with or we think is wrong and bad and dangerous. We're not those people. And on Instagram, I do the same thing. Like, there is plenty of content out there that I could just do like a stitch or a remix or whatever they call it, where you pull up something somebody's saying that you think is like stupid or wrong, and you're basically just like reacting to it and telling them what a bozo they are. And that would be really easy to do. There are a lot of accounts that do pretty much only this, whether it's former patients posting, this is what happened during my surgery, and then a surgeon coming on and being like, no, we never do that in a surgery. This person's dumb. Or just disagreeing professionally. We don't do that. And some people do. So I made a reel a couple weeks ago with that Bo Burnham song that's microwave popcorn, where like, I put the packet on the glass, the little glass dish in the microwave. Anyway, so I used that song to talk about when you go to your doctor and you say, okay, I want to run some tests. I want to talk about testing that isn't maybe what you typically run here. And they say, oh, you want to do labs? Okay, I'll put you in for a yearly physical. And you're like, well, I want to do some testing that's not part of the yearly physical. I want to do something else. And they say, okay, but that testing isn't on the panel for your yearly physical. And you're like, bro, I know. I'm not trying to get a yearly physical. I'm trying to run these tests. Hello. And doctors that just don't get it and won't test your vitamin D, won't look at your progesterone, won't check out your blood clotting potential issues, even though you've had a pregnancy loss. They say you need to have 3. So it was about that. And a labor and delivery nurse named Nadia came into the comments and was like, why don't you just become a doctor then? Honestly, worst type of patient. Talking about people that are coming in with lists of labs that they want to run.
Mhm.
And
AKA someone advocating for themselves.
someone advocating for themselves. And
No
the
matter
truth
what that looks
is,
like, do it.
maybe I am wrong. That's maybe this list of labs. Maybe you come in and you're like, I want to run all these labs. And your doctor goes, oh, okay, well, let's look at these. Okay, this one we actually already ran. And these ones here, I think we could look at those, but I want to take more time doing these and these treatments first, because I think no matter what the answer here, it's just going to get us all spun up in a direction I don't really think we need to go in. This one and this one, I can tell you right now, are very expensive, and I will run them if you'd like, but it's probably going to be cash pay and be really expensive. If a doctor came alongside you like that, you would be like, oh, all right,
Thank
well,
God.
thank you for your opinion. You're looking to collaborate with this person. You want access to their knowledge and experience and expertise and education. Like, that's why you're there. If they want to give that to you and
You're
say,
here
well,
for it.
let's look at this and work together, versus just being like, in this, we don't do that. Our protocol is this. And you're like, that's nice. I'm not here because of your protocol. I'm here because I need help. Anyway, so this doctor or nurse lady comes in here and says, this is the worst kind of patient. And I went on her page to be like, who is this clown? And it says on there that she's a labor and delivery nurse who is studying to be a women's health nurse practitioner. And I was just like, woof.
Yeah.
You are telling people that come in with their own list of labs, why don't you just go and become a doctor? And honestly, you're the worst kind of person. Worst kind of person. Not somebody who's like committing a genocide somewhere. That's not the worst kind of person. To this nurse who's a women's health specialist in training, the worst kind of person is someone who comes into a doctor's office with a list of labs they want to run. Honey, why are you in this line of work? if you hate these people, if you hate people that are trying to figure out their bodies, that are sick and trying to get well, you hate them so much, you're going to come on to social media and make a public post on someone else's page about how much you hate these patients. Yikes.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
I made a reaction video where I would said basically everything that I just told you, and said, I guess the difference between me and Nadia is when I see these videos of patients talking about how bad their experience was, my vow is to never be like that doctor,
Mhm.
not to never be like that patient, not
Amen.
to hate the patient.
Oh my gosh.
It's
So how many people have you seen? I like off the top of my head immediately, I can a handful. Like I have a patient right now, just had a miscarriage, secondary infertility, struggling with like bloating, stool issues,
mhm,
recurring bacterial vaginosis, like really struggling. She's seen regular OBGYNs. She's seen a reproductive endocrinologist. She's seen functional medicine doctors. And like we did some thorough testing and we found a handful of things going on in her gut. Shocking because she has recurrent bacterial vaginosis. Like your gut
mhm,
and your vagina communicate, people. And she has H. pylori, which has allowed an overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria because we've like decreased the stomach acid with this H. pylori infection. I have another patient I can think of that saw a reproductive endocrinologist, an OBGYN, and some sort of integrative chiropractic Chinese medicine person. And all of them told her she had PCOS. And so she came to me, the PCOS specialist. And within 10 minutes of talking to her and looking at her things and asking her questions, I was like, you don't have PCOS. This is hypothalamic amenorrhea. We literally
mhm.
fed her 3,500 calories for less than 2 months. And she ovulated for the first time in years and got pregnant. So Sophia and I are not doctors. That is not
No.
who we are. And frankly,
And frankly, I don't want to be one at this
no.
point.
And it's not really within my scope of practice to
Thank
diagnose
God
someone
I'm
with
not one.
hypothalamic amenorrhea. Like
No.
that's not what we're supposed to be doing. But at times, what am I going to say
Like,
to the
I'm not a
person?
firefighter, but if your car's on fire and I'm holding a garden hose, I'm not gonna, roll it up and turn it off.
And I don't always have the answers. I very often am like, "Huh, I'm stumped by this. These are the
Dude, that
questions I
happens to
would
me all the time
ask.
too.
These are the tests I would run. This is the type of
Mhm.
specialist I would go see. These are the things I would do in the meantime so you don't feel like you're twiddling your thumbs." But just because you're not a doctor, I can't tell you how many patients that I've met of Sophia's or mine that are like, these are the first practitioners that ever really listened to me. They spent like an hour listening to me and then they asked
Yeah.
more questions. And so
Mhm.
if you're seeing a women's health expert, even a functional medicine doctor or an extreme specialist, and they do not have patience and an ability to address concerns that you have, questions that you have, or an ability to look at a list of labs that seems important to you to want to run, then I'm sorry, but I think you should find somebody else to work with. That's hard to hear when it took
I
8 weeks
agree
to
with
get into
that.
that person. I get that. But, like, if they're not helping you move the needle and they're just talking about a standard of care and they won't be open to digging with you and they're not curious, they're not gonna have solutions for you.
They're not. Sophia here, interrupting this episode to talk about fond bone broth, tallow, and lard. So, fond bone broth has long since been a staple in my home kitchen. I use this all the time. You will always find it in my kitchen. And you know what? I even make my own bone broth. That's how much I love fond is I pay money for something that I also regularly make for myself. It is beyond delicious. The flavors that they have in these broth, it's so deep and complex. It's not like a can of Swanson's. It's not just like the chicken and stars type flavor, though that can be delicious at times. This is such a complexity of flavor. It's almost like a beverage, and I'm not exaggerating. Plus, you can use it in cooking, everything from vegetables, starches, grains. Very, very easy way to get more collagen, protein, and minerals into your life by simply cooking with broth. It is truly delicious, and it will take any dish you use to cook with it, from just a normal dish on the table to truly gourmet. So head on over to fondbonebroth.com and use code FFF10 for 10% off your first time order. Bye. And some keyboard warrior, I just pulled up to see if this person has replied
Replied,
to me. And some keyboard warrior is going crazy on here.
I'm sure.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
I,
it's
I
really
saw
saying, accusing someone of drinking raw milk, says it's because you drink raw milk, lose weight, and you'll see miracles happen. What a
so
psycho.
so I saw a reel yesterday of a pretty cool surgeon who was like,
Hmm.
just did another surgery on someone with like advanced worst endometriosis I've ever seen, who had a complete and total hysterectomy, had her ovaries taken out, had her uterus taken out, and was told this would cure her endometriosis. And she kept going back to the doctor and saying, I'm still in pain. I'm still struggling. So this
Hmm.
doctor comes on the case and does surgery. The places she found endometriosis, like deep within ureters that were now like connected to organs that aren't
Gnarled
even
and
close. I mean, just like, no wonder this gal was in pain. No wonder.
mm.
And they just went in and chopped out her lady bits and was like, this will cure you. And then didn't listen when she said it didn't. Oh man. And as we're recording this, I'm like just baffled by the state of all of us navigating women's health issues. I'm
It's
trying.
really awful. This is really so sad. And this is what happens when healthcare is run the way that it's run. Wish I could change a lot of things there, but I can't. So, yeah, so I decided not to go negative, but to talk about how when I see patients who are struggling, my heart burns with compassion for them. And I want to learn more and become even more of an expert. And I want to come alongside them and help them. I don't want to shame them and hate them and shut them up and get them the hell out of my face.
Mhm.
And if that's how you feel towards the people that are coming to you in your practice, it's time to quit being a doctor. It's time to downsize your practice or something. Time to make a huge life change. Go somewhere else with yourself. Go on sabbatical and scoop ice cream in the Cayman Islands for a couple months and then come back when you're feeling happier, because we can't stand. That's what I can't stand. That's actually who I made the video about, is gals that are disgusted by patients who have a list of labs, or this lady who just told somebody to stop drinking raw milk and lose weight. What? That's another bit. Should we talk about raw milk someday? That's become so controversial
Let's just talk
to
about
where
it.
it's like, yeah, it's like
Let's
a
just,
badge of, like, people have become so incensed by raw milk. Like, if you drink raw milk, they treat it like it's straight poison, that you
yeah.
are
Like you've
killing
chosen to
yourself
go
and
lick
others.
raw chicken. Like
Mhm.
that's how absurd it
Yeah,
sounds.
but
Like,
worse than that. Like, I think that they really think it's like, it's become so political that, like, if somebody likes raw milk, it means a lot of really big bad things about them. And it
mhm,
doesn't. It means they like raw milk. It's not a defining factor for someone's life.
mm-mm.
It really
Doesn't
isn't.
shape their character. And there's
No.
benefits of raw milk. Like I drink raw milk, not exclusively
Well, you would be considered a crazy right-wing extremist, which is so funny to say about Caitlin,
because I'm so
because
not.
she's so not. In fact, honestly, Caitlin, you're one of the most moderate political people I know. Like you're
Well,
very,
thanks.
very moderate.
I take that
I
as
think
a
you just have
compliment.
good sense. And so there's some things about you where you're like, I think the right side has a better plan. And some things about you are like, I think the left side has a better plan. And most things you're like, none of these clowns have a plan.
Mhm.
They all suck. But yeah, you and my husband are both like the most moderate people I know. But
Yeah.
certainly not a right-wing extremist for liking raw milk or
I
using raw
mean,
milk.
now here's the thing. I think it's great if you can get it from a source that they're doing the job right. But I also don't spend half of my Friday driving 40 miles out of town to go get it all the time, right?
No.
And also sometimes I buy Fairlife milk, which is in a plastic
Yes.
bottle and people say is terrible for you. But you know what? I have blood sugar issues and it's got 50% more protein and half the sugar. And it's not because they did all this crazy messing with it, they just filtered it differently. So, yeah, here I am. I'm moderate. I'll do both and I'll drink regular milk and I'll even drink milk from not grass fed and finished cows, or fed cows. Doesn't matter if they're finished because they're still milking. I can be in the middle and still be healthy. Look, I had the period that I bled on the bed and I drank all those milks in the last cycle.
Yeah, and it
I'm
doesn't need to be
slap happy.
integral to your personality. It's not a defining factor about who you are. And the same thing when it comes to so many other issues. Caitlin is very wonderful with these kinds of things. But yeah, so raw milk, guys. We could talk about this controversial topic. So the people that hate raw milk, I'm not exactly sure what has incensed them to the point where they have reached like a deep and burning hatred to where they're going to like comment online about how much they hate it. But they do. And the dangers of raw milk are really that look, cows are kind of dirty animals, and unless they are in really great conditions and things are very, very pristine about the way that they are milked and then the way that the milk is handled, because milk is so nutritious, it's also very nutritious for bacteria. So,
Mhm.
if bacteria like salmonella or E. coli, listeria, like all these scary foodborne illness bacteria that can live in the intestines of farm animals. And then if their poop gets anywhere, or your hand and you touch the milk and all these things, milk is actually a very great medium that the bacteria can grow and proliferate in.
Lots of
And
sugar.
yeah, lots of sugar, lots of proteins, tons of moisture. This is what they love.
Mhm.
And so the issue becomes look, unless you're like living right near this cow and can see that it's quite clean and that who's milking it has good like hand washing practices and they're not just like being some dirty farm worker that's kicking poop with their boots and stuff, then your raw milk may not be safe to drink. It might
Mhm.
contain something that could make you really, really sick. Or if you're pregnant, could end your pregnancy. Or if you're immunocompromised, could even kill you. But just like we've seen in other very political moments in this country, just because some people are immunocompromised doesn't mean we all need to live our lives like we are immunocompromised. You know, some people need to wear diapers because they pee their pants, but that doesn't mean that everybody needs to wear a diaper because
Mhm.
not everybody is peeing their pants. And so this is along those same lines.
And so, okay, it's a medium that is ripe for bacterial proliferation.
It is.
Concerns with foodborne illness are not unrealistic, especially if you look historically. And in mass production of something that Sophia and I, and probably you, were marketed to as children as like the health food of all health foods, got milk.
Yeah, remember JTT saying he's going to date the girl if she drinks milk?
I mean, this is a huge industrial complex in the United
It
States.
is.
And to produce enough milk to make the milk, to make all the milk products that we consume, like cheese and yogurt and ice cream and such, they need to produce a lot of milk. And so they throw a bunch of cows with a lot of hormones shoved into them in, frankly, compromising situations. And so this
Mhm.
milk has to be pasteurized to ensure its safety for mass distribution and consumption. That's just the name of
Yes.
the game in this huge food industrial complex. That's different than like living on a ranch where you grow this food and you live next to the dairy farmer and you exchange things like people did for most of human history. And so, with these modern benefits and drawbacks of our food system, things adjusted and we became so used to pasteurized milk products that as soon as people started questioning what was going on within the nutritional benefits of the milk when pasteurized and asking the question, what if we just go back to drinking raw milk and making milk products out of raw milk? That, I mean, it's a huge moneymaker. And so we start interrupting that. And I think in order to really talk about this, you also have to bring up the benefits and the cool things about raw milk. I mean, you hear us talk about
Yeah.
breast milk. We're not talking about milk from a human here, but milk comes from most animals that it comes from because a baby should be drinking it. And it comes complete
Mhm.
with enzymes to help break it apart on its own. Comes with all these incredible proteins in it. It comes with fat and fat soluble vitamins. It comes with immune factors that are awesome. And as soon as you pasteurize it and heat it, you have impacted a lot of that almost like natural ability to process it on its own. And so people who really
Mhm.
struggle consuming a typical milk product may not have that same issue with a raw milk product. And it agrees with their systems better and it truly in my opinion is more nutritionally dense. But it does come
It
with
is.
risks and it's typically more expensive and in some states it's not even legal to purchase. And so it has become this like very dividing thing.
Yeah, it's become very, very dividing. And, there are different degrees of pasteurization. Like there's the ultra pasteurized, ultra filtered, like the A2 milk that's
Mhm.
made to be shelf stable for months and months. Raw milk straight from the teat is going to last days, not months. But then there's different levels of pasteurization and homogenation and filtration that can happen all along the way. And the political push is to sort of open that up to where like there can be more consumer options on what it is that they're trying to have. And it also opens it up to where I don't know, you just get to decide what it is that you want to have instead of the government deciding for you. And some of the problems are, look, people that are in really urban areas that are in food deserts, raw milk, what are we even talking about? Like these are people that are struggling to even like get food at
Yeah.
all. Exactly. And so it's not something that we need to be seeing at like the 7-Eleven necessarily, and I'm not sure that that would even be safe or possible to distribute it at that scale. And so some of the argument is like if we start doing this, then we're like reducing what is accessible to the people who are most vulnerable and need it most. But I just don't quite
That's a
agree with
silly
that.
argument, frankly. Like, vote
Yeah.
with your
Well,
pocket, and it'll be available to those of us that can afford it and access it. And to that person, they're just gonna get the one milk option that's available at 7-Eleven in Brooklyn, right? Like, I
mhm.
I find that to be a really silly argument. Really silly. Right or
It is,
wrong.
but it's a piece of the puzzle, and yeah, but and now it's become synonymous with being like a right-wing extremist, and it's just very weird that those two things have come side by side. Isn't it funny because it's like all the things that used to be like so hippy dippy, like you're such a hippie, you're such like a flower child, like you were like the most left-wing looking, that's what people used to think of you, is you're the most like liberal person.
Mhm,
You're
and
the
now
one
it's the
that's
total
like
rights.
skipping the vaccines and
Uh-huh.
drinking the raw milk and birthing at home, and like now it's flipped
It is.
totally
It
to where
is.
like the people doing that are now the ones that are like considered the right wing extremists.
It is kinda wild now that you point it out. Well, I don't have much else to say about raw milk other than I think it's worth trying if you can afford it and you can access good stuff and you want to. And if you don't and you tolerate milk well, I think it's great for you to eat Greek yogurt and cottage cheese and utilize this form of nutrition for higher protein sources. Now, granted, I don't drink milk. Like getting raw milk isn't for me to have cookies and milk. It's
Yeah, it's not a beverage. Milk is a food, and you need to think of it like that. It's not like, hey, I'm thirsty, let me grab a milk. That's what water's for. Milk is a food, so it's an ingredient in things like mashed potatoes and tea, lattes, baking, cooking. Like you're going to be using milk in recipes, and that's a great place for it. But just drinking it um, is not, unless you're like 1 year old. I
right. I
don't
was
know
just gonna say, like, who should do that?
if
Small children,
babies.
babies.
Yeah, little
Yeah,
kids.
like the fat, great for their brain. Okay, well, I
Yeah.
feel like let's wrap this episode up. What do you
Let's
think?
tie a
Let's do some
bow
yeah
on our
girls.
hot goss controversy episode. We've just sort of dumped a lot of data on you about our dad's cancer problems and
Hope you're here
our
because you
dads with their
actually love
cancer
us.
throats. They should make the joke that they've been making out. That would be a funny joke to make for the two of them,
Oh
that they
man.
cancered each other with kisses.
Oh man.
And also that's a mental image that's pretty gross.
Oh man, I
Um
just undo that. I wish you could.
delete. But now that you have, you can make our dads look however you want, okay? In your mind, we're the ones burdened by how they actually look for that mental picture. But we talked about that. We talked about the reasons why ovulation is good, and that skipping ovulation, skipping your period for convenience sake, is not
Silly.
conducive to health and fertility. And
Celebrate your
it
menstruation.
celebrate your menstruation. Make a fun name for it. I have endometriosis and uterine fibroids, and even I call it immune time. So
Mhm.
if I can do it, you can come up with a way to embrace her a little bit. And lastly, um, we talked about raw milk.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's the episode. Put a bow on it.
Here's
Put a
your
straw
bow.
in it.
Here's
Drink it up.
here's some yeah girls. We're gonna bow it up right here.
Hey, it's me again, Sophia Pavia, registered dietitian nutritionist specializing in women's health, fertility, and optimal progesterone production. And I'm interrupting an episode of my own podcast to tell you about my online course called Ovulation Unlocked. So, if you've been listening to our podcast episodes, you've probably heard a lot of things about basal body temperature, cervical mucus, cervical position, and tracking your fertility. Well, I have designed a 90-minute self-paced online course, which I titled Ovulation Unlocked, that puts all of that together and teaches you how to be the expert on your own fertility from home. This course is designed to put you in the driver's seat of your own fertility, not only so you can know what's going on with your body on any given day, but so that if you need medical help, you can show up to the appointment informed and ready to communicate. Too frequently, us women show up to our doctor's appointments and just say something like, I want to have a baby. And the doctor looks at you and says, good for you. Stop using birth control, start taking a prenatal, come back in a year if you're not pregnant. And that's all we get. However, Ovulation Unlocked puts you in the driver's seat, puts you in control of your fertility to where if you need help, you can show up to that appointment informed and ready to communicate your needs. So if you want to become the expert on your own body and your own fertility, head on over to my Instagram bio and tap the Ovulation Unlocked link today. Yeah, girl, this, okay? So my baby turned 4 yesterday, and we had that as a yeah girl when we recorded yesterday. But the yeah girl that I'm doing is that she wanted to have breakfast burritos at her birthday party. And so we got
I love
all these
that.
breakfast burritos made at this Mexican restaurant around the corner from our house, and people didn't eat all of them. So we
Huh.
froze them. And
Amazing.
now we're just heat and eat these breakfast burritos. They got bacon and eggs and cheese and potatoes, and they are super yummy. And so we have breakfast sort of prepped out, and they are all like individually wrapped already. It was way more expensive than making them at home, of course, astronomical,
Whatever.
but
You didn't have
it
to do it.
was not party food that has to get thrown out because it's
Oh,
like some half-eaten veggie tray or whatever.
Tell me your mom's a dietitian without telling me your mom's a dietitian. I'm a
We had
4-year-old
breakfast burritos
that
and
asked for
donuts, a
breakfast
bounce house,
burritos.
and a piñata.
I
And the
love it.
piñata had to be filled with lollipops. That was the request.
Oh my God. What a sweet party. I wish I had been there. That is so fun. Okay. I actually have a great yeah, girl. I
Let's
mean,
hear
we
it.
still have some pen signing to do, but it's been a weird okay, so you heard about my dad. It's been a weird season of my husband. He switched jobs. He's been okay, happy at it, but he isn't thrilled by this new job. Well, the job that he left has been like hunting him back down, like, come back to work for us, come back to work for us, come back to work for us. So yesterday he got a job offer. And one of the things that was a breaking point and why he left is because he used to be able to work from home most of the time and then he couldn't any longer. And so, as a negotiating piece in his offer to bring him back, he will get to work from home and he's getting a significant salary increase. And he is like getting a more senior position, which is great for his resume and future. And
Yeah.
like it's like an official position that's more senior. And I just can't tell you the relief since you've listened to the first part of this episode about my dad having cancer and becoming a caregiver, it will be to just like have my husband at home more often, making more money so I don't have to make as much money, and liking his job more because he actually really loved his last job. And last year they sent him to Paris, and I was very convinced by God that I shouldn't travel like I traveled a lot last year. And I
Mhm.
felt very clearly convicted, not like I got revelation, but like was like, I'm not supposed to travel and I don't know why. And my husband went to Paris and everyone was like, why didn't you go to Paris? Why didn't you go with him? And I was like, I don't know. I felt like I shouldn't. Really feel like God is keeping me home. And my daughter had walking pneumonia. And then it's not even the end of December. And I had another couple opportunities that I passed up. And like now my dad has cancer and it's cancer treatments and all these things. And I'm like, I didn't need to know why. I just needed to listen. And
Mhm.
now I just have this blessing of my husband is going to be
It
home.
sounds like so sorry. Such a freaking bummer.
It is,
So
but it's a yeah, girl.
instead of going to Paris with my husband, everyone in my life became grievously ill.
I know,
So
but you know
glad
what?
I'm home.
You know what? They needed their mommy or they needed their medically
It's true.
trained daughter. It was the right thing even though it's not glamorous, and I think that that's
Yes.
cool. But really my yeah girl is that BJ got a new cool job, but it's actually his old cool job
Yeah,
with
BJ.
perks
Go,
back.
BJ. Go, BJ. Go, BJ.
Your
It's
birthday.
not your birthday, but you got a new job. So you think he's going to sign papers for this job tonight?
I do. They were
Today?
working on like the last I heard before we hit record, and I haven't really looked at my phone, was like it's with the
Do
hiring
you
manager getting
want
approved.
to do a little
Cheers.
pop a toast? Yeah, pop a toast after you
Yeah.
guys have your dinner or put your kids down or something tonight?
I love that idea because we also got a super fun when my sister was here. Okay, guys, this is the tea. And this is terrible. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but my sister came into town right after we got the diagnosis and we did all the shopping for all the things we were going to do while she was here. And then we ended up at Total Wine and More. And we walked in and there was this gal, Luna. And Luna was like, Total Wine and More, they taste everything. And in Kansas, you can't just buy a bottle of wine at Trader Joe's. You have to go to like the liquor store. So we're at the front and she's like offering things and I'm like, oh, I'm not interested in anything hard. And she's like, oh, I got this like horchata and chocolate liqueur situation. And I was like, oh, that sounds good. I'm going to try that. So my sister and I ended up buying it and it became the cocktail of the week where we just like kept drinking this sweet, terrible for you,
Like
but
a
it was nursing our
mudslide
wounds.
milkshake kind
Oh
of
my
thing?
God, it
Yeah.
was amazing. And we played Jackbox, the game that you play like on
Oh,
your phone
I love
on your
Jackbox. Oh gosh, I want to go to this party so bad. You and your
yeah,
sister with a
like
horchata drink playing Jackbox.
horchata,
Oh,
Jackbox, we were
okay,
playing
40th
the
birthday. That's my request.
Scrabble or whatever it is, where like you draw the things and you make guesses. Anyway, we got totally drunk with this
Drawful.
drawful. My kids call it scribble, but we play it with them. We played drawful with this drink. And so BJ and Molly and I it was just a very fun night and definitely what we all needed, a lot of laughter. And we drank through these like 2 bottles. So BJ yesterday after we got the job offer, he's like, going back to Total Wine and More, and I'm going to get this stuff. And so anyway, yes, I would like to toast with you later. And that's what I'm going to be drinking because I have 2 more bottles to drink through. Listeners, if you're still here, I'm sorry. And you're welcome.
Well, I've got a little bit of a bottle of wine left to finish before I go on vacation next week. And my husband's sober, so he'll have a magnesium dark cherry bedtime cocktail.
All right. It's a date.
He's had enough
Listeners-
drinks in his life. He reached his max. So he filled his punch card before the rest of us. So now he's done with that. But yes, a toast absolutely tonight. So listeners, you should have a toast to celebrate something.
Get you a
Do know what?
friendship like
If
this
you do,
friendship.
get this. Listener. Today, toast something, record yourself doing it, put it in your IG story and tag us, and we
I
will
love
put
that.
your toast in our stories.
I love that. Let's do that. Should we
To
make
anyone who stuck through to the end, you'll be featured in Food, Freedom, Fertility story.
FFF toast?
You've earned
That's
at least
the
that
hashtag
at this point.
All right, guys, we love you. Keep listening, rate, review, like, share, and we'll see you next week.